Lindo's a real cowboy. He rides a horse all the time, every day, all day. Wore a hole through it here, took it in somebody and they patched it. Well, anyhow, long story short, he wanted me to take the tops off these and build a new pair of bottoms for him. And after I got home with them and got to looking at them, I thought, it'd be way cheaper just to build him a whole new pair of boots. Personally, I've got, I guess it isn't a weird foot, but it's an odd size. I wear like an 8 quadruple E. Very, very high instep. So I was never able to go to a store and buy a pair of boots that fit. So what I'd have to do is I'd buy a pair of boots that were a little bit too big. And then if there wasn't a shoe repairman around that was confident, I'd take a knife, I'd cut a split in the instep there so I had a little more room. If there was a good shoemaker around, I'd take it down and I'd sew a patch over it. And my feet hurt about 90% of the time because of that. So a number of years ago, we were down at a horse deal in Texas, and there was a bootmaker had a booth set up. I got to talking to him, and I thought, what the heck, I'll try it. So I sat down, he measured my foot, we kind of designed what I wanted. 5 or 6 months later, I get a pair of boots and mail. So I immediately open them up, look at them, boy, they look good. Sit down and put them on. Stand up and walk around. My first comment was, there must be something wrong with these boots because my feet don't hurt. Ideally, I should be able to build a pair of boots a week. When a customer wants a pair of boots, we take a set of measurements. We trace both feet, the outline of both feet. We take actually about 10 measurements of the foot, basically what type of a boot they want or what style of a boot they want, what types of leather, the colors. The next thing we do is we build the last. I'll take a last that fits pretty close to what her foot is here, and you kind of measure it like that. And then I'll take those measurements and transfer them onto the last. A good handmade boot will outlast 4 or 5 pair of factory boots. So we cut the tops out, we cut a lining, put a lining on it, put your top beading in. This actually has some stiffening material behind here on the front panel, and then the same as you can see on the back panel. And then once we get all that glued together, we glue that together with rubber cement. We'll transfer this stitch pattern here onto the leather. And we go over here to a little sewing machine and we start stitching. This portion of the boot here is called the vamp. So we'll cut 2 vamps, and they're basically cut in this shape here. And then we take those, we put them in a bucket of water, we soak them until they're saturated, and then I stretch them over this board. This is called a crimping board. And what this does is it kind of creates the general shape of what this vamp is going to be like. Takes most of the stretch out of the leather through here. The next step is we'll draw a tongue pattern on here. Then I'll trace around here with a pen, and then we'll cut that out. And there's a number of ways you can do it. I do it with a pair of scissors. Traditional bootmakers would use a knife. And the vamp would go on pretty much like that right there. Then I'd go to a big stitching machine and we'd stitch the edges. And at that point, you've got something that looks like this right here. I know 3 or 4 bootmakers that's got a 2 and a 3 year wait on boots. Just spray a little bit of water on this back counter here, kind of soften it up just a little. What you do to turn these inside out is you start folding the top in. throw it in a bucket of water up to about here, and I'd let it soak until everything down here is soaked through, saturated. And then we would go put it on our last. And what we do to put it on the last, we just take that last, we set it in there like that. I'd pull it down over the toe as tight as I can get it, and then I'd nail that toe down to the insole. And then at that point I'd put it back on my little stand here. And then I would go around this and I'd pull the lining, and I'd pull the vamp up over here. I'd tack it to the insole. You can see that the last is sticking up outside the boot. I'd drive that last down in there, tack all the way around the heel. I pull it down to the point that you get all the stretch out of the leather, especially in this portion right here. When I pull on that, you'll see it bead up and actually sweat. Little drips of water will come out of it. But there's kind of what our bottom's going to look like. Here's the insole. I stitched this portion kind of to it just to hold it. This is just glued down the heel. Our welt would have run around through here. It would have been stitched on. This with wood pegs. Okay. I would trim the sole, rough trim the sole to match the around the welt and stuff. Then I'd go over to this old machine right here, and that was built especially just to sew the soles on boots. I would come in here and I go down through here, all the way around here and up here, and I put little wood pegs about no more than a 1/4 inch apart. I put 2 rows of those pegs in, okay, and that's what holds this portion of the sole to the insole. With moderate care, and I mean maybe washing them off occasionally, probably never polishing them. They're getting about 3.5 to 4 years out of a pair of boots. I'll kind of taper the edges down there so it blends in nice, looks nice. Polish all this, get it down as slick as I can, or as slick as you can get some leather. And then I'll stack the heel. The heel height is measured at the side seam of your boot here. You want at least 5/8 inch, what they call toe spring here in the front. This last here I can put an inch and 5/8 heel on. So if you don't have enough toe spring, you can't tip your foot forward, okay? Shape the heel to whatever the customer desires. Polish it. Give them a visual examination, make sure everything's right. Then I pull the last out. We stick that on the deal on this stand like that. We push down here, and that last breaks. And then we grab the boot by the heel and just pull it off over. The good boot makers tell me the good boot makers do not they don't cover up the end of their pegs in there so people can see what they got. That's basically it. I think Linda told me are about 8 or 9 years old. And I'd defy anybody to go find a pair of factory boots that would live under these conditions and last 8 or 9 years.